What's the venue where you and someone more on the left could have a conversation to work towards a Democratic position that is okay with the base, but that can also win elections?
So I agree that both of those candidates struggled with that answer, and that is indicative of exactly the problem that you articulated. I do think there is a discussion happening in the party about that. We and others have said that answer won't do, and we're going to need to be much clearer about where we are. And it contributed. It wasn't the only thing that doomed Harris, but it definitely contributed to that. There are people in the party that are laying out much clearer points of view on this. I mean, Rahm Emanuel went on Megyn Kelly's podcast. Megyn is totally obsessed with the trans issue. He knew he would be asked a whole bunch of questions about it, and he answered them very clearly and very forthrightly. And he did not humana. Like, she asked him at the end, how many sexes are there? And he said 2. And she said, well, why don't Democrats say that? And he said, because I'm going to have to enter the witness protection program now. But you know, Rahm did that very deliberately. So I do think there are people and groups like ours that are kind of laying out and articulating a clear vision that is different than what some of the activists want. That debate is important. And that's true not just on trans, but on immigration, on crime, the things that have divided Democrats before. But I don't think we're going to get to resolution on any of this until we've got a leader. And, you know, in our system, you don't have a leader till you have a nominee.
Right. So, okay, let's play through the Rahm thing. It's one thing, and this goes back to Bill Clinton, who's the model for this, right? He led a debate within the party, right to work, welfare reform, death penalty. He said, we're going to have this discussion, but you do it if you want to affect change and build consensus, not on Megyn Kelly, because he's going to get a good reception with that answer, right? Let me see him go on MSNBC and answer that question that way, right? That's the way you start to have a conversation that doesn't need to be confrontational. Bill Clinton said, I'm a Democrat by birth, heritage, and conviction. I think that's what he said. And talk to people on the left about these things, not just about electability, not just saying we can't win this election unless we say there's two sexes. We can't win this election unless we say trans athletes shouldn't be in girls and women's sports, but also it's the right thing. It's not just the right thing because it's popular 80-20. It's the right thing because that's what I, quote, speaking now as Rahm or whoever, this is what I believe. That's a much more full-throated effort than Rahm going on with Megyn and saying, yeah, I believe that, isn't it? And again, I say, where can that happen? Can it happen at a DNC meeting? Can it happen within Congress? Where can that play?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, first of all, to defend Rahm, I think he truly does believe what he said on Megyn Kelly. I don't think he does anything for political gain.
I don't disagree, but I just don't give him credit for saying it to Megyn.
Well, but, if you say it to Megyn, you say it to everybody. Like that,
you do.
He can't back up now. If he goes on MSNBC, he can't give a completely different response. So
I look forward to seeing his response on MSNBC.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe I'm wrong, but Rahm is pretty tough and pretty inured to getting yelled at by the left. And I think, in fact, he thinks that that's the only lane for him. So, one, I do think he believes in it, and I think he would say it at any venue. Mm-hmm. But your question about where do we have this out is a really important one. And the problem is, like, there isn't an obvious place to do it. I don't think it's going to happen in Congress because when you're in the minority, like, you don't control the agenda. So, like, I don't see members, having fights about things that are not coming up before them. And I think it's probably going to happen in various media spaces. So, Rahm will go on MSNBC or on the Pod Save guys or whatever and have these kinds of conversations. And I think it happens in the kind of, intellectual infrastructure that's around the party. So, for example, as you know, we put out a thing a couple of months ago or last month that lays out a bunch of phrases that Democrats use. Some of them involve the trans issue that they should stop using. And that generated a lot of conversation. So I think that's the kind of way that Democrats are going to hash this out in the next few years.
That was a brilliant thing. You and I talked about it, and you didn't say this is a cure for everything.
No.
And you didn't say we don't respect people in the trans community. To the contrary, you just said first step, baby step, important baby step. We have to use different language. How did people on the left react to that?
So it varied tremendously. People like Sarah McBride, who was, of course, the only trans member of Congress, really liked it, and she very much agreed with it. And her view, and I don't want to speak for her, but my sense of her view is that trans people have very, very serious challenges right now with Trump kind of attacking them constantly. And having fights about language is not the place where we should be putting our energies. Right. But a whole bunch of people on the left really hated the memo. Some of them said we are, abandoning our principles if we ever had any. Some said, well, did you poll these things to know whether you should be doing them? To which our response is, if you need a poll to tell you whether it's better to say inseminated person or pregnant woman, you might not be very good at politics. And others said, well, this is no longer a problem. And that was our favorite response, because literally one day after our thing came out was the DNC meeting that became kind of infamous last month. They opened with a land acknowledgement, and it just kind of went on from there with the same kind of language that has been alienating voters now for like almost a decade.
When you think about the people who are talked about to be the leader of the party, who may run for president, governors, some members of Congress, are any of them talking about ideas that you think could be popular and that could be third way type ideas, but also have appeal to the base? Can you give me an example of anybody who's talking about a specific idea? Now, I'm tempted to say, don't name something from either Ro Khanna or Rahm Emanuel, because I think those two guys are doing it. So leave them aside. Anybody else, just name one person, one idea that you find appealing from a substantive point of view and a political point of view.
Yeah. So I think both Josh Shapiro and Wes Moore are talking about the need to be able to do things, to build things and repair things quickly. And both of them have really interesting stories to tell about that. I mean, Shapiro got the I-95 break, fixed in like 2 days. And Wes Moore got the bridge in the Baltimore Harbor fixed very quickly as well. And they did that by basically saying to the bureaucracies, I don't care about the rules. I don't care about all the hoops you're supposed to jump through. I want this thing fixed immediately. And he got it done. That, I think, is at least adjacent to the kind of elite discussion around abundance.
Yeah, it is adjacent. You know what Michael Dukakis would say about those examples? They're about competence, not ideology, right? You're right that those are appealing things. And they certainly rebrand the party as anti-bureaucrat, in some cases not anti-union, but not letting unions dictate how quickly something happens. But those aren't policy ideas, right? Those aren't innovations. They're just competence, which I'm not minimizing. Is there any? Forget if anybody's talking about. What's an idea you have, or Third Way has, or you've seen from Brookings or any place? What's an idea that you say, this is something we should be talking about healthcare or jobs or manufacturing or anything?
So there's a whole bunch of things that we're putting out that are, think tanky stuff that I think could be turned into things that people want to talk about. One is like a healthcare bill of rights that allows that makes clear exactly what patients can expect in terms of billing and in terms of debt, et cetera. But I think going back to your question about like who's saying interesting things, I do think that there are some of these guys that are going to run are starting to articulate a vision with policy behind it. So, for example, the very first thing Shapiro did when he took office was he got rid of the requirement of having a college degree to work in government. That is a policy idea that is also a deeply resonant political idea as well. I think for our entire careers, Democrats have put way too much emphasis on everyone going to college. And that turned out to be a catastrophic error, both substantively and politically. So I think de-emphasizing college in government hiring is really smart.
Yep. Okay. I trust your judgment and instincts about the people's presidential campaign prospects literally as much as anyone I know in either party. So I'm going to give you some names. You say, as a general election candidate in 28, formidable, not formidable, too soon to say. Ready?
Okay.
Formidable, not formidable, too soon to say. General election. Don't have to win the nomination in this game. Gavin Newsom.
Not for too soon to say. Between too soon to say and not formidable.
Good answer. I like the split the difference. That's good. Kamala Harris.
Not
formidable. Wes Moore.
Formidable.
Okay. Shapiro.
Definitely formidable.
Definitely Shapiro. Pritzker.
Too soon to say.
Too soon to say. J.D. Vance.
Formidable.
Formidable. Tell me why. I'm kind of obsessed with Democrats' view of this because your answer surprises me in the sense that most Democrats at least pretend to think he's not formidable. Tell me why you think he'd be formidable.
I think that's insane. Look, if he wins the nomination, he will have the Trump blessing. Look, he is not as nearly as charismatic as Trump, but you can learn on the job. I watched Al Gore get at least a little bit better learning on the job. And he wasn't great by the time he ran, but he wasn't nearly as bad as he was when he first ran in '88. So he'll have spent 4 years watching a real political talent, manage his coalition. And if Trump kind of lays hands on him and hands over the party to him, he is formidable no matter how kind of awkward he can be in certain situations.
Do you agree with me that he could enter the general election with $2 billion in the bank and hard money and super PAC money?
100%. I mean, Elon Musk has $500 billion. You can write him a check for $2 billion.
Yeah. All right. Glad to hear you say that. How has Third Way, this organization that you co-founded and you help run, how has it maintained its influence for such a long period of time?
Well, thank you for that premise. I mean, we have staked out a position on the center left, which is not very crowded. There are a whole bunch of groups on the farther left that kind of jockey for position, but the center left there isn't much else here. There is the remnants of the VLC called PPI. There are some small groups like the Welcome Party. There's a new think tank called Searchlight, but there really isn't all that much. And the interesting thing about democratic politics is that despite the fact that the brand of the party is kind of being defined by the far left in ways I think are very unhelpful, our voters have nominated moderates basically every cycle since 1992. I mean, we could quibble about John Kerry, but every other nominee since 1992 has been center left. And so there is real appetite. I mean, there's more than 100 members of the House New Democrats. There are a bunch of moderates in the Democrat caucus of the Senate. So we have a lot of customers, including almost every time the nominees, and they're looking for the kinds of ideas, both political and substantive, that we generate.
Yeah, I think you can say since '88, Dukakis was center left. He wasn't.
Yeah,
ish. Crazy.
I mean,
crazy
he was
liberal.
Right. That's true. He was a little more beholden to labor unions and others than
fair.
And Clinton kind of defined what it meant to be a moderate in a new way.
Everybody, now I want to tell you about a group. It's called Vapor Technology Association. It's an organization started nearly a decade ago to protect the rights of Americans who choose alternatives to smoking, and about the small businesses who have made a living using this technology. They all support science-based policies and the rights of adults to make healthier choices. Did you know that many family-owned vape shops and manufacturers around the country are under attack thanks to what are considered outdated Biden-era regulations that threaten to wipe out an entire American industry? The Vapor Technology Association, also known as VTA, says businesses are being destroyed and people are losing their jobs now. But the VTA says President Trump has a clear opportunity to change this and to protect Americans' rights to make their own choices and to defend small businesses, restore a free and fair marketplace. Head over to vaportechnology.org to learn more about the organization and why they are leading the charge to support American innovation. And if their mission appeals to you as you read about it, consider becoming a member when you get to the site. Again, that's vaportechnology.org. Tell them you heard about them on Next Up.